Hey, good afternoon everybody. This is video number 2. If you look behind me, this is the Palace of Justice. I just came from there. And the Palace of Justice in 1945 was taken over by the Americans to use in their International Military Tribunal, otherwise known as the Nuremberg Trials. And during the Nuremberg Trials, 22 high-ranking Nazi officers were put on trial for their war crimes, their crimes against humanity and conspiracy and crimes against peace and the like. Now, what's important to note is that two things were established before the trials. Number one was what they were being put on trial for. These men were being put on trial for the crimes that they committed against the peoples of nations that the Nazis had occupied. It was not to bring them up on charges for crimes they committed against the German people. And number two is the London Charter was written up stating that the defense of saying I was just following orders does not work. Doesn't fly, as we all know. That was the big statement, I was just following orders. So the most famous of the people that were put on trial were Erming Göring, and he actually, I saw clips and things that he said, he saw it pretty much as amusing. He was very bold and bragging, and you could tell he wasn't very sorry for what he did. In fact, all 22 men pled not guilty beginning at the trial. So the trial consisted of prosecutors and judges from 4 victorious nations, the United States, Great Britain, France, and the Soviet Union. Interestingly enough, the Soviet Union actually tried to bring up and blame the Germans for a massive slaughtering of Polish people that they in fact did. They brought it up and blamed it on the Germans, which is interesting. But in the end, we know what happened. The 22 men were sentenced to shorter prison sentence, life in prison, or even execution. What I wanted you to remember from the last video, Albert Speer, I didn't actually see any information about this in there, but I think it's important to note that I find him interesting because he is the only Nazi to actually say that he was sorry, that he apologized for the crimes that he committed, which he was one of the 22 men that were put on trial here. So, yeah. Courtroom 600 I actually sat in. I'll put up pictures of that later. That's where the trials were mainly held. Luckily enough, it's actually still an active courtroom, so if it is in use at the time, you cannot visit it, but luckily it wasn't in use, so I did. So you'll get some pictures of that. See you later.